Welcome to another episode of the Playful Lens. And in this episode, we are very honoured to be talking to Debbie Cullinane. I have known Debbie since 2018, since we began training as child and
Gotcha.
adolescent psychotherapists and play therapists many moons ago. So, Debbie, would you like to introduce yourselves to our listeners?
I would. Thanks so much for having me, ladies. It's great to be here. So I am from Mayo. I'm a proud Mayo woman and a mum of two little babies, even though they're not babies anymore. They're 10 and 9. So we're definitely going into that teenager years, which is lovely. Very different from the smallies, but with its own challenges. And I was a primary school teacher, same as you, Helena and Gillian. So I went back then. Was teaching for about 10 years, and I went back and did the Masters with Helene out in Child and Adolescent Psychotherapy, specialising in play with the Children's Therapy Centre. But before that, I actually dipped my toe in. I did the Level 6 Therapeutic Play Skills. Before that, I did that with Laura Coleman here in Clare Morris. It was in person. At the time, in person or online wasn't a thing, actually. You just went and did your course. So it wasn't a question whether it was in person or online. Obviously, with the teaching and everything, you did value play, and I was in infants and I loved it and I loved the playtime. But I don't think I facilitated the playtime very well. I think I nearly just took it as a bit of a DOS myself as a teacher, and I just let them play away. But I wasn't looking at the play in the way that I do now, even though you think you were Dawson, but even going around and commenting on it and doing everything like that was actually really powerful stuff as well when you do know what you know. But I remember coming home from the first day of that therapeutic play skills and my mind was blown. I was just like, oh my God, play is so valuable. And I came home, my kids were about 2 and 1 at the time. And I had the messy play out and I got so excited about it. And we were doing dry messy play. And I had never even heard of messy play, really, at that point in 2017. I just wasn't aware of it. And from the day dot, from that day forth, I was just like, plays the way. And it's mad how your lens change once you do learn new things and learn about the value of playing. And it's just mind boggling and life changing. And it makes you so curious about all the things that the children are doing then in school and then as a parent as well. So it's just the value of it is incredible.
It
Um,
really is, as you say, it's to view it, and it's eye-opening and shocking as well at how much I certainly dismissed
Mm.
as a teacher when I didn't understand the value of play.
Totally. And I remember, one thing that really stood out to me in relation to play was the partners, the 6 stages of play. Remember when we did that and it was like you have the solitary play and the associative play and the onlooker play. And I went into my junior and senior infant classroom and I was just looked at the children in a completely different way because as teachers, sometimes we're like, why aren't they playing together? Or why aren't they interacting with each other? Why is that child on their own? But now I was going, that child is doing onlooker play. That child is doing associative play. That child is now doing collaborative play. And this one is doing creative play. And I didn't even realise as a child that when I was really into creative things and the colouring and all of that, that was playing too. I always thought playing was like small world play, where you'd play with the figures, or role play, where you'd put on things and you'd play with each other. But I never really thought of all the different ways that you can play until we learnt about them and all the different types of play that we have. And I think that is so valuable as well for teachers and for parents because you're really taking each child as unique and seeing what their innate sense is about what they want to do and what they want to play with. And I just think, yeah, it's class.
It's pure
It
class.
is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And to us a little bit about sensory play and messy play, because I know that you have a lot of expertise in that area and it's becoming more mainstream. Maybe we're moving away from just having the sand and water in the junior infant and senior infant classroom. Maybe you give us some insights, Debbie, into the value of that sensory play and what that might look like for children of all ages, and especially the older kids, because I think they are often neglected when we talk about sensory play.
Totally. And I think there's definitely a misconception of what sensory play is as well, because even my husband's an SNA and he has gone through all the classes. And when we were training first, I said to him, like, what do you think sensory play is? After I had learnt all about the 8 different senses and everything. And he was like, it's the sand, like, and it's the water. I was like, it is. It absolutely is that. But it's so much more than that. And it has so much more benefits than just being sand and being water. And it really helps them to learn new skills. It helps with brain building. They can learn new neural pathways. by engaging in different sensory materials. And it's great for them to play with their own sensory preferences and to get to know their bodies really well. Because even I remember the day we did the big sensory play with Siobhan when we were training, and I hated the water beads and the sensory beads. And I did not know, and I've become more aware now, I didn't know how averse I was to wet sensory things. And they still give me the ugh. When we were training doing our sensory play day, I couldn't believe that I really disliked the sensory beads and the wet sensory play. And I didn't know that about myself before. Do you know when you start to play with things and do different things? I love the dry, love the sand, love the rice, love all of that. We don't realize that every single child that we're working with or parenting have different sensory preferences. And even just today, my little fella was on the couch and he was chilling and we have like a velvety cushion and he got another one and he put it on top of it before he lay down. He said, I hate the feel of that cushion. And I said, really? He said, yeah, that I just don't like, can't lie on that. And he had a really hard one. He's like, do you like it? And I was like, yeah, I do. And I said to him, I said, that's, you just have a different sensory preference to me. And that's absolutely fine. But like, lovely that he's aware of it and that we're all aware of each other's. But that can be a tricky thing as teachers because it's hard to have something for everybody, isn't it? But it's just about having lots of different things that they can experience and never making it something that they have to engage in either.
Oh, that's really important because I feel like as teachers,
Yeah.
we're so often, if you don't like the water beads, I'm as a teacher saying, well, what can I do to get you to engage
Yeah,
with the water beads? And I feel this need to force you to
I
engage.
know, yeah.
and there can also
Yeah,
sometimes be, well, this is what we're doing, so you just have to join in. We don't, there's that lack of understanding of that sensory preference and that sensory dislike.
Yeah,
And like you say, we could have an alternative. Maybe there could be the wet station and a dry station, so the children
exactly.
can
yeah,
go to whichever one they want. And then they may go over.
yeah,
I'll try it for a minute. No, don't like that. Okay, I'm going away from it.
yeah.
But the
Absolutely. Or you can have, the plastic gloves if they want to
Mm.
engage in it but not actually touch it. Or you can put it into a Ziploc bag so they can experience it that way but not actually have to get their hands in. And that gradual exposure is what's built in the neural pathways so that when they do come across it in their lived experience that they will have had a chance to have played with it before so that they know it and it doesn't bring anxiety for them or it's not too scary for them because they're like, okay, I know what this is like. But it's also okay. I always say to people, I don't like washing my hands. I do it. I'm not a filthy person, but I don't like it. I don't like the feeling of it. And nobody else ever says to me, I don't like it either. Most people say, I love it. I love getting it. But do you know what it is for me? It's the cold. I don't like the cold. The water is usually cold and I'm just like, I really don't like it. And I hate anything cold. So when I was small, I never liked getting sun cream on my face. I don't like putting creams on myself. When I come out of the shower and it's cold, I'm like, oh, do you know, I really dislike that. Whereas other people, that wouldn't bother at all. Do you know, they'd love it out, a bit of cold water or a bit of cold air or anything like that. But like, I'm like, but like bringing awareness, I think, for teachers and parents to your own sensory needs is so powerful in how you can understand your child or the children that you're working with. Sensory processing is so powerful. Like it's taking in information through all of the senses, and there's 8 of them, so it's an awful lot. And then you process that information. And then what happens is you produce an adaptive response. And for most of us, our adaptive response when we have fully developed brains and we have experiences of the world is just nothing. So, like, we walk into a big, loud shopping center and walk around and we get our bags and we get hot, but like nothing too much happens. But when you bring your awareness to everything there that you see, that you smell, that you touch, that you taste, that you hear, and then how your clothes feel on your body, how your feet feel on the ground, everything that the environment is throwing at you, the noises and all of that, it's so overwhelming. And if you think of like school environments, particularly, because I know a lot of teachers listen, like it's wild sometimes what they're expected to sit in. And I would often hear teachers saying, nothing happened and they just have a really big reaction to something. And you're like, it could have been as smell. It could have been something outside the window. It could have been a noise that someone made. It could have been the way you breathed on them and they didn't like your breath, or your perfume maybe triggered something in them. Like, there's so many things that our senses bring up, particularly our sense of smell. It's one I'm obsessed with because scent is so hugely linked to memory. And we'll say you have a child in the class who might have had a tricky time with another adult, and you happen to wear the same perfume as that adult. They mightn't even be aware of why they're finding it difficult to build relationship with you. So I always say to teachers and parents or anyone working with children, be careful of your scent yourself, and be careful of your proximity to the child. And even if you're wearing really loud things on your clothes and things like that, because that all matters too, particularly when you're working with children with complex needs or children who might have experienced trauma in their lived experience of the world, because that's huge for them. Just even that self-awareness as us working with children can be great. And then remembering as well that sensory play is to do with our bodies and our movement as well. And so we have, I'm not going to get into all the lingo about it, but like, we have three hidden sensory systems: proprioceptive, vestibular, and interoception. So the more experiences that children and teenagers and people have of proprioceptive input throughout the day, the more regulated their systems will be. And that's why the gym is so massive now. That's why we're really into this resistance and this weight training and all that. It's not just because we want to be aesthetically pleasing, it's because it makes us feel good and it gives us that hit of endorphins, and it's something that we seek out. So, like, OTs would always be prescribing heavy work, particularly with children who are sensory seekers or who might be struggling at school and all that. We can do those things so easily. Like, you can literally sit yourself on a chair and put your hands in prayer position and push them together. And that is going to give you heavy work. Like, that's as easy as it is. Or do a couple of wall push-ups or chair dips. And I love at school getting teachers to try and do this like as a whole class, because sometimes we're doing the sensory breaks and the movement breaks, for the children who might be, have a diagnosis or be neurodivergent or have been given a report from an OT that they need to go out. But everybody needs it. And the movement is essential for the learning piece, and we're really realigning the brain and the body so that we can reach the learning brain and be able to learn effectively and efficiently. So bringing your sensory play and your different things into your classroom is always going to be beneficial. And the same at home too. And helping your child to become aware of their own bodies. Like, even here, we'd always use the phrase, your body is telling you that you need. So, and like Freddie, my little fellow, will come to me now and be like, my body is telling me I need to move. And I'm like, what do you need to do? Get curious. What do you need? And he'll go like, I'll go on the scooter board. I'll go on the poker jumper. I'll jump up and down. I'll run up and down the hall. And they'll come up with something themselves. And I'm like, great. And it's like turning those moments of madness when they're really sensory seeking, and it can often be in the evening when the children just kind of get really hyper aroused in the evening and they want to get, it's nearly like really risky play and that kind of thing. But rather than being like, will you stop? You're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt each other. Try to turn that into, if it is like being risky or too dangerous, okay, you can't do this and you can do that. So give them an alternative for it. Like, give them things to do with that energy to expel it, because that's when it seems to come up, particularly for, any sort of sensory seekers or children who find it difficult to fall asleep at nighttime. That would be a really big one for getting that proprioceptive or the vestibular input in before sleep. That's really beneficial, particularly for children who might be deep feelers or sensitive or find it when they stop that their brains start. So that will be so common for children. So when the world stops and it's time for bed, then it's like, here come all of the thoughts. So if we can get the input in prior to bed. Do you know when they're small, you always think they need wind down, and that we get it all calm and all down, down, down. And some of them do need that. Some of them do. It depends on the child. I've one who needs that and they'll go off no problem, but I've another who needs a wrestle and a rough and tumble. Yeah, they need to be swung in a blanket, or they need to do some challengers, or just get all of that out
Yeah.
before the sleep can come. I'd be lying on top of my fella in there, just like trying to get as much weight on top as possible. And that's where the weighted blankets actually and things like that are brilliant for if you have little ones who are finding it tricky to fall asleep. their class. There's really good ones from OT ABC. She's got a weighted lap teddy, which is brilliant. That's your proprioception. And she's got a weighted lap pad and weighted blankets. And they're really, really good. The weighted lap teddy is so cute, and he gives you like a hug. And that imps I would definitely recommend.
Do you know what's amazing? Like, how lucky is Freddie that, you know, what he's getting from you all the time is checking in with his own body. What does your body need? And what would you say to a parent or a teacher who says, but I asked him, what does he need? And he said he needs to, you know, run around the yard 10 times. Sure, like, that's crazy behavior. Running around the yard, I need them to sit in a classroom. Help us understand why it's so important that he gets his physical needs met.
But it's like pushing down the needs that your body have. And I think children are unreal because they really do have an innate sense of what they need. And that's why it always be tried to help SNAs to see that, you know, the movement breaks, I do think they should be child-led because I do think they actually know what they need. Even if that is that they want to run around the yard 10 times, let them. Because this is like some children, I work with children that wanted to cartwheel 100 times over. I've worked with one little fella who had the pogo jumper, you know, the ones from Smith's, the ones that bounce up and down. They're like €8. They're the best freaking thing ever. I recommend them to everybody. But I worked with a little fella before. He did 1,000 of them.
What?
And I had to count. I was more tired counting. And he got to 1,000 and he didn't stop. And I was like, oh my God, this is ever going to end. But it was unreal. And it was just, he had that much energy to expel. And then he finally got tired. But yeah,
Yeah.
what I would say to teachers is it's hard to cater for all the needs, like it really is. But if you can make it like a teensy part of your day sporadically throughout your day, you really are helping everybody to try and push down the stress, like the cortisol and the adrenaline, and push up that happy, like the dopamine and the oxytocin and the serotonin and the endorphins that we get from the movement and the connection. And if we're thinking about our stressometers, the more that we can push down with the movement, the less you're going to have the overspill of behaviors. So it's actually really productive to provide for it and counterproductive to stop it when they're literally telling you that this is really what they need. It's like attuning to the needs that they're showing you is so powerful. And it's something I would never have done, to be honest, as a teacher. I would have, anyone's frigging listening to me or not, I'm getting it done, you know? And so I'd look down at the class and there'd be tumbleweed and you'd be like, okay, nobody is getting this, like, except the poor little Divline at the front, you know, the one, there's always one who's like,
We didn't grow up with any sort of
No.
awareness that we need to be attuned to our own bodies, that our bodies are intelligent and they're wise and there's energy that we need to expel. Instead, we just kept it all in and pushed it down and, oh, we're fine, fine.
did what we were told. And yeah, and if you didn't, you were in bother. And like, I'd say everyone of our vintage-ish would have had children or might have done it themselves who like rocked back and forth when they read. And they would have always, I remember children in my class when I was small, and the teacher would always be like, stop rocking, like, stop doing that. Sit in your chair quietly and properly. And now you're going, oh my God, like that child was just trying so hard to be able to learn and get information into the short term memory and try to take that all in. And they were being stopped from being allowed to regulate their bodies so that they could learn it. And it was often the children, I know in my class, who struggled and they weren't being allowed to do. And I think that's just so sad. But I don't think there's any blame there either. I always think that we do definitely do better when we know better. And sure, we weren't. I wasn't taught this stuff in college. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't train until, I did a degree first and then I went back and did my postgrad. And from what I can gather now, I think things are improving somewhat. But I think there's a way to go yet. So I think, it's very tricky as well on NQTs coming out and trying to go into classrooms. And it, like, we are being met with a lot of needs. And I think there's an awful lot of pressure on teachers as it is to try and do everything and be everything. And sure, we can't be. And being you is building the relationship and bringing in your playfulness is brilliant. And that's exactly what they need.
Yeah. Yeah. And like play
Sure.
lends itself to movement, doesn't it? You know, when you're doing something, whatever it is, that the children are allowed to get up and move around and get things that they need, or even just walk around the table if they need to, or it naturally lends itself to that. And I always feel like what you said about just bringing that movement into your day, like I try to do that as much as possible during the day because you have those few children in mind. I know they need this. But what about the child I'm missing? Or what about the child who just needs it today or just in this moment? So I always think, what about me? What about the teacher? I need to move.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
always try to get that movement, as much as I can. Like you say, when there's tumbleweed, I'm like, right, let's get our motion mania up. What are we doing? And, 30 seconds on the clock and we'll all do whatever it is. Roll the dice. Because you could be missing a child and it could be that little quiet person in the back of the class who isn't doing the rocking, but they need the sensory input too and they need the movement. So I think, just having it in your class and then just play lends itself to movement.
Totally. And yeah, exactly. It is. And we often miss those children um, because they're not causing us any bother, but they're still needing it, like you say, as much as any other child in the room. So it's great. And it doesn't like, well-being is such a huge thing now in schools, particularly at the minute and in life in general. We're all more focused on well-being. But teaching children about how their bodies work and what their bodies need is just like that is well-being in itself. Oh my mother of God, I wish I knew this stuff when I was a teenager. I would have understood myself so much better, even when I was in my 20s and my 30s. And I still have a long way to go, but at least your knowledge is your power. And like telling children why you're doing it. We're doing this so that our brains are going to focus better. So when we've this done, we are actually going to learn better. And this is going to be brilliant. So let's do this and let's come back. And it's important as well, I think, for teachers to learn, when you do really alert with the movement, some of them can get hyper aroused. So it's good to have something to calm them and bring them back down into a state where they can learn. So they're not gone too out of their window of tolerance and still able to stay within it. But you can use loads of different little tools and for that as well to make sure that the learning can still happen. Because that would be something I'd be met with a lot by parents and teachers. Teachers particularly, if they bring them outside and then they come back in and it's like they're wild. So it's like that is just a pain in the backside now because everyone's gone bonkers. So you do have to have like calming activity once you have an alerting one just to bring them back into the room. Same as ourselves.
And that type, like that sensory play, as you say, that movement, and that's for all the way up school.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about like the sensory play that we often default to is the messy stuff, like or even the basics, the sand and water. Would you see a place for that? Like if we're having childhood play in fifth and sixth class, would you see a place for sand and water, Debbie, looking at it through the lens of sensory play?
Absolutely. For all ages. I think we have this really skewed notion of play and that it stops when they get to third or that they've no interest in it when they get to third. But like they still absolutely love it. Like I love playing with sand. I love playing with like different things like that. And they do too. And it's like we nearly have this notion that they think they're too cool for it. But it's our attitude towards it. So if we're bringing it in and we're like, this is class, this is brilliant, we're going to do this. And like we would use clay, we'll say, up in the senior end of the school a lot. I hate clay myself, to be honest. It's just like that again, it's wet and it's messy and I don't love it. But like, why not still use Play-Doh? Play-Doh is unreal and they can do such amazing things with Play-Doh and even like making things and guessing what each other has made, like doing all different things with it. The smell of it can be really regulating as well. So absolutely bring it in to the senior end. You know what? A lovely thing that I did when I was in my last school, we used to do buddy sensory play instead of buddy reading. Now my principal was just Dawson. So I used to take everybody while he was doing his paperwork. He had fifth and sixth. We'd only small classes, and I had juniors and seniors, and we buddied up. So every week we did slime, and we did cloud dough, and we did shave and foam, and we did everything. But sure, the older ones were brilliant to help the younger ones, and they were slime pros. Like I wouldn't even never be able to make slime like they could, and it was just like it was unreal because they loved it. And if anyone didn't want to get their hands in, then it was fine because they were still experiencing it through the looking at it and through the like seeing what was going on for the others. And then when it was made, then they would be able to play with it if they wanted to. But there was also no pressure, and such a lovely connective piece for the older ones and the younger ones. And yeah, they absolutely loved it. I used to love that on Fridays. And sure, like the older ones as well are brilliant because like as a teacher particularly, or even if you're taking out messy stuff at home, you're like, oh, the cleanup, is the painful thing that you don't want to do. But sure, the older ones will do all that for you and with you, and they'll be great to do it. They loved getting that responsibility of it. And if you're a parent and you don't like it's very easy to use those IKEA trays and throw something in it. I personally myself don't like the tough trays either. I find them a pain in the backside. I think they're just too big. I ain't getting out no hose or nothing. I'm just like use a smaller tray, put whatever in it, and that can go very quickly and it's grand. Throw down an old towel and sure, let them belt at it. And they love it as well. And if you like setting up a little invitation to play like that, particularly if you have toddlers or little ones who might be dysregulated coming in from school, would be a big one. A lovely little sensory play invitation to play, regulate the nervous system, bring them back down, something they enjoy. And you're going to have a much more regulated little person afterwards and maybe ready to do the dreaded homework. Can we do it? Can we do an episode on homework? I know.
Yeah, and it's one of those because I know when I did playing fifth and sixth, it was their go-to, like their favorite area was always the messy play.
Yeah.
But it's really hard as a teacher to see value in it. And you're thinking, how is this linking to the curriculum and where can I extend this learning? And that's challenging. And I remember I was fifth and sixth making oobleck. They do all the
Love
cleanup.
it.
Remember my 3-year-old in preschool was making oobleck. And you kind of feel like, "Ah," and you're kind of thinking, well, where's the progress? Where's the progression of learning if they are making it in preschool and they're making it in fifth and sixth? And that's the bit that I feel like is so important and it can get missed when we talk about sleep. It's the experience they're having. It's that experience that we're giving them. And I suppose that's why everything you've said so far, Debbie, about the benefits of sensory play, I'm hoping that it will start resonating so we can let our fifths and sixths play and have their messy play because, as you say, they need it. Their nervous systems need that to regulate just as much as the younger
Yeah.
ones do.
Totally. And like you can always bring it into your science, and your materials and change and those kind of things. And they're like, even though they played with it in third class or in Montessori, there doesn't need to be progression. Like children absolutely love and adore ritual and repetition. And like doing the same thing over and over again is so regulating in itself because it's like a pattern. You're like, I know this, I love this, and this is exactly what I like to play with, and I love the feeling of this. Or maybe it's bringing them back to a time when they did play with it and they get really excited about getting an opportunity to do it again because they mightn't have it at home. So that's magic in itself, isn't it? Like it doesn't have to always be progression or expectation of like an older child plays with the clay, but the younger ones play with the Play Doh. I love Play Doh.
See, it
I'd
has
love to
to
play
be.
with Play Doh myself.
Yeah. And we have to be really careful
Yeah.
because it's not going to cut the mustard with a principal, an inspector to say, we're doing it because they love it. That's just not going to cut the mustard. But there is the joy of doing it.
Yeah.
And we need to start valuing that joy because if we're talking about well being and the
Mm.
health of systems, those experiences of joy really matter.
Yeah.
So I'd probably strongly argue that.
Well, what I would say is that play is a huge part of the curriculum now. It's a huge focus in the curriculum. And the characteristics of play are joy and being iterative. So there you go. You've got the repetition and you've got the joy.
Yeah.
So you are actually adhering to the curriculum by bringing that play in and that playfulness in and allowing them to experience the Play Doh.
Yeah. There we go.
Absolutely.
Solid argument now for Play-Doh and oobleck and slime
Yeah.
and all sand
Yeah.
and right up.
Totally. But you can even be like, you can be bringing it into something like, I don't know, like a word dig or something in your sensory thing. And they're taking out the words. And then those words are the ones they've chosen out of their big tray of whatever they have are the ones that they're now bringing to their literacy or their writing. It's like you're digging in your thing and now your writing words are coming from this and off we're going. So like we can bring it in. And like that's a very creative and fun way to Or you can bring it into your maths and put little sums in it, or they can make them for each other. Great little challenge to like make really difficult sums for each other and hide them in a tray, and they have to do them when they've got their whiteboards and they're using different creative materials, or they might be bringing in chalk, or there's loads of ways to bring it in and still hit the curriculum and what you want to do in it. But it's just about that active learning part of your lesson might look a little bit different because you want to be bringing in the sensory element, because you want the children to be regulated as well at the same time, because the learning will be more efficient and effective without a doubt. So yeah, for the older children, I just think it's brilliant.
There we are.
Yeah, I was in a school last year with six, and we were doing something on bullying, and I had my puppets in, and I was my nephew was actually in the room, so I was a bit dodgy about bringing them in because he was like, "Don't embarrass me." But sure, I went in, and they all absolutely loved and adored them, like, and they were holding them and they were rubbing them, and like that is a like the tactile input that they were getting from the puppets was just amazing, and they adored them. And like these, like some of them had mustaches, and they were bigger than me, and they were walking around with these puppets, and they absolutely loved them, and it didn't matter. Like you can be 95 or 100 or two and still love sensory play and puppets and all of those things. And I actually did my dissertation on the use of sensory play and puppets with adults living with dementia. And it was absolutely beyond incredible the impact that it had to regulate those residents who were there. And like I remember one man just with the visual sensory tubes, I had loads of those, and he was so dysregulated because he was always asking questions, and he was very confused about where he was and always wanting to know. But when he was sitting engaging in the visual sensory play, which looks like nothing when you're just watching, he was regulated because he was present, and that's where his mind was. And like as amazing as our brains are, we can only think about and focus on that one thing at a time, and that was what was really helping his nervous system to just be there and not be thinking about all the thoughts that he had in his head. So I'd always say, even for early finishers, it's lovely just to have those visual tubes and they can just turn them over and watch it. Like, that's brilliant. It doesn't have to be another sheet. And
Yes.
it's something you have to correct. That's what I always hated about the sheets. It was like, oh, to make them and then you have to correct them. So, like, if they all have a scent bag and they all have, and there might be a visual tube on the table, or they might be using a look and find book or something like that, well, that's much more regulating than them sitting there doing more writing that they've no interest in doing, or you've no interest in correcting either.
And do you know what phrase is in my head now, Debbie, as you talk? It's coming to your senses. We just need to come
Yeah.
back to
Yeah.
senses, don't we?
Absolutely. And we make sense of the world through our senses as
Yeah.
well. And that is the learning in itself. And I was thinking recently, do you know the way we sometimes just need a sensory break, like where we just all need to like diffuse, and that's as important as engaging as well, because our systems need rest too. But I was reflecting on school again myself, and I remember when we were small, juniors, I'd say, we used to come in from the yard and all the busyness of the yard, and they used to tell us to chegi a colour, and we'd all, yeah, and we we'd all put down our heads and they might put on a bit of music or something. And at the time, like, I didn't think much of it, but I was like, that's actually a really good thing to do, to get them to become more organized after the alerting of the yard, and to come back in and just have a few minutes to just be, and not to be doing anything, but just to be having a rest. And that has a place as well.
Yeah.
Like sensory breaks are as
We're-
important as
Yeah. When we're talking
engaging in everything too.
when we're talking about schools and well-being, like it's those ordinary simple things, taking time to slow down, that are invaluable.
Yeah, and just being in the room. Nobody's able to be anymore.
No.
It's always, I'm either looking at the phone or I'm doing something else. The children are doing something, and everybody's just like go, 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 go. It's so fast paced. We just don't stop for a second. We're looking for the next thing to engage us. And so our children's, yeah, really important part and part of well-being for us as teachers and parents is helping children to sit with nothing.
Yeah.
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 Slow down.
Debbie, can I ask you, do you think, is there a misconception that sensory play is only for neurodivergent children? Like, I have suggested sensory play in webinars or in different things in different conversations. And I've been met with no, I teach mainstream. And I'm going, yeah, but you can do sensory play with all children and all adults, as you say. So is there that misconception?
And what I would have heard a lot over the last few years would be someone saying, "Oh, they're a bit sensory." And I'm like, huh? That is not a full sentence. Do you know what I mean? We're all a bit sensory. We're all a lot sensory. But it's like that was basically saying they were neurodivergent or that there was something else going on for the child. But I think it's getting a little bit better now in that people are becoming more aware of the fact that sensory play is for everybody and it's not just for the juniors and the seniors and the sand and the water. What do you think? Like, you're on the ground more. I know I work with lots of teachers in schools, and I do find, there's obviously lots of sensory rooms now and sensory spaces, and we're becoming definitely more aware. How do you find things?
I definitely think I agree that it's getting better, but I know as a parent, I would have done a lot and do a lot of sensory messy play with both of the boys. And I remember when my oldest child was very small, somebody asked me, and is your son autistic? And I said, no, but we just like sensory play. We just, it's good for us. So I think there definitely is a misconception that sensory play only benefits certain children and is only beneficial in certain circumstances. Whereas, I haven't seen a huge amount on teaching practice or a huge amount, there's not as much sensory play going on as I think I'd like to see.
Because I know with when I had junior infants and we bought all these lovely resources for our children with additional needs, the peanut ball, movement ball, and the weighted balls and the wobble boards, all of that. And it was like, why would they only be there for children with additional needs?
Yeah.
They're fabulous resources. So we used to go down on a Friday afternoon and oh, the joy, like they just loved it. And it was so, and I was conscious, I get about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then it would escalate and it would be too much. So as a teacher, I suppose I was able to recognize, okay, we've hit this point now. And for us, we just breathe. We just, right, let's regulate our
Yeah.
body. Let's settle ourselves down and we'd have the hot chocolates out and we'd smell the hot chocolate and
Mm.
out in for 4, out for 8. That was it, but it was just it's a shame to think that there are these amazing resources in
Resources, yeah.
schools and that we don't value them for all children. We're all sensory.
Absolutely, and it's unfair on both sides of it
Yeah.
because you're singling out children with additional needs as being very different in the way that they regulate to other children, but actually we're very similar. And then the other children, I think, feel so hard done by because they're like, that's not fair, like that they get to do that and we don't. Yeah, all of the sensory toys and the fidget toys and the scented things and all of the sand and the water and the slime and the sensory beads, they're for everybody. Absolutely. And they have such huge benefits for children. And you know what one of the lovely things is, I always think about how you're going to build your relationship and your bond with your class particularly, and even as a parent. And I guarantee you that if you do some sensory play or you bring in some different types of things into your room, that's the things that the children will remember. And they're the things that they'll go home with. And they're the things that'll fill them up and help them feel good and safe and cared for. And that we have an interest in what they like to do as well. And they're the things that they come home and be like, oh, today this was really fun and school was great and it was something lovely. Because even when I left my school, I had a puppet for years in my school and I went back then, she was introduced. And the children who were leaving in sixth will say it had been her first year with them. And I went back for their graduation and I went in and they were like, do you have her? And they were like, is she here? Is she like, what is she doing now? And they were just so excited. They didn't want to see me, but the association of the fun and the playfulness was what they remembered about me. And it is fabulous because it's like, that's exactly what I want them to remember about me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll have sparked that in them. Debbie, I'm
Yeah.
conscious of time because we would talk to you all.
Yes.
So are you ready for your 5 rapid fire questions?
Yes, and I didn't really even read these. I'm not a guest, but I actually like to do things off the cuff, and I deliberately didn't read them too much because I kind of like to just be like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
And not like prepare things in advance.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I
how I roll.
yeah, love it. What was your favorite thing to play with as a child?
Favorite thing to play with as a child? Colors, coloring, art, that kind of thing. Give me a table and a coloring book. And yeah. And I wouldn't call myself, I'm not good at drawing or art or anything like that, but I really enjoyed coloring. And I just found that so relaxing. And it was something that I always went back to. And I always wanted to be someone who engaged in small world play and liked it. And I didn't ever like it. I
Yeah.
never liked the figures to do things. Never really liked playing with the dollhouse oven, even though I really wanted to, because I thought it would be lovely, but was never for me.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
funny.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's funny, isn't it?
It is really interesting. Yeah. If you had a stick to play with, what would it become?
Sword. A weapon.
A weapon.
Definitely a weapon. A weapon of sorts. Yes. Someone's getting belted with that stick.
And Debbie, who nurtured or nurtures your playfulness?
Oh, my grandparents, for sure. It filtered all down from my mother's side. My grandparents were and are the most playful people on the planet. They were always messing, never stopped. My granny is still the biggest divil. She's 93 and all she does is mess and play and laugh. And everything's always a joke. And my granddad was the biggest header in the room. He'd be the one standing up, singing a song and making us get us to all play games and sing songs. And he never even drank. And my mother was always playful. Everything we did as children was through a game. It would either be a race or she'd make washing potatoes into something fun. It was always fun. She was just really good at that. Um, so definitely, yeah, my mother and my grandparents for sure.
Lovely. So nice. That's a nice way to
Yeah,
It's a lovely way to
Yeah.
live your life.
Yeah.
yeah, it's great.
What is a playful habit that you have never grown out of?
Playful habit. Oh, I don't know. I never stop messing. I think I play all the time. Like a playful habit. I dance and I joke and I act like silly every day. Probably too much, but I enjoy it anyways. And the kids like it. Yeah,
Yeah, that's lovely. And again, a lovely way to live life.
it is, I think. And even on, your crappy days, you can still find a bit of laughter and playfulness in it. I think that's probably a lovely thing we have as Irish people too. We're able to bring playfulness into a lot of situations. Sometimes it might be a trauma response, but that's okay too.
Yeah. Question, Debbie. What is a small joy that you look forward to every day?
God, it just feels selfish, but my coffee. I absolutely freaking love a store my cappuccino that I have in the morning. Like not straight away, but around 10, half 10, whenever I have my first bit of whatever I have to do done. Oh my God, I love it. I love it. It's worth its weight in gold to me.
Yeah.
I also love my children, obviously, and my husband. But my coffee is going to be the one today.
I'll be gum first. Debbie, before we let you go, I'm going to tell you a very quick story about messy play at home. So I like the messy play. I do a lot of messy play with the boys, dry play, the wet play. So I had lentils out when Oisin was probably about 2. I had a load of lentils. He loves diggers. He loves cars. We were digging in the lentils. But at this stage, I hadn't figured out to put them in a box. I didn't have a tough tray. They were all over the floor. And that was fine. So he went to bed. And there was part of me thinking, the way you don't tidy up the play and what if you let them continue to play. So I hadn't decided, am I tidying them up or am I leaving them? And I went into the kitchen. Now, when I say I took flight, I mean, this was before we did our extension in the kitchen. So I took flight. My legs literally, I skidded along on the lentils. My head hit one press, my legs hit the other press
Oh my God.
to play. But if you are, use a container. That's my key takeaway is use a container. I mean, I can still see it, and that's 6 years ago. I just took flight, and it was so slow. It happened in slow motion. I felt myself. My legs just went up above my head. And I was
Oh my God, you poor thing. I'm picturing like a Home Alone scene of you like. Oh, yeah, keep it in a tray, folks. Keep it in a
Yeah.
tray.
my key takeaway. Debbie, what is your key takeaway for listeners?
Key takeaway. Play is the way, lads. It really is. And like, try it out and see what you think. And if you don't like it, sure, let the children have an owl go and see what happens. And, it'll occupy them for ages as well. So, yeah, don't be afraid of it and don't be able to afraid to try new things because it's really beneficial for the children and they will definitely remember it.
That's a lovely
They'll have
take.
core memories of play for sure. And safety and connection. That's what it's all about. And we get that through playing with them. And it's not that you have to sit around playing with them all day now. Few minutes,
No.
set something up,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play
Yeah,
is play.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That was just a brilliant conversation full of loads of really little important insights.
No, thanks, ladies, for having me. Absolutely delighted to be asked. And you're brilliant, Dewey. So well done on the podcast. And yeah, I can't wait to listen back and listen to more episodes as well. You're mighty.
Many thanks to Debbie for joining us on this episode. We really hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as we did chatting to her. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and turn on notifications so that you never miss an episode.